my lovely fiber artists, and welcome to the first episode of Wool Witchery. My name is Jennifer, and I thought I would kick off this series by giving you a little bit of background into my history as a knitter. So I began knitting in college, my first try. And I say my first try because I don't know if everybody else has this experience, but it took me more than once to get going in this craft. I'm used to being really good at crafts, not to brag, right away. I'm just a kind of person who picks up new skills pretty easily, and knitting was the exception to this rule. Everything I knit came out at a slant. I have no idea why. I was trying to knit rectangles, and instead I was knitting parallelograms. If anyone can explain this to me, I would love to hear it. I still to this day don't know how I was doing it. Because the next time, fast forward until about 7 years ago, I had a friend sit down on my couch and he was casting on and ripping out and casting on and ripping out. And I finally asked, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that?" And he said, "Oh, I'm just practicing my long tail cast on. Would you like to learn how to do it?" And I thought, you know what, let's give this knitting thing a try. So I dug through and found my old aluminum needles and my set of yarn, which had been gifted to me by my mom. And I don't know if you have this experience, but every time someone who has given up knitting finds out that I'm a knitter, they just gift me their entire stash of red heart yarn and aluminum needles. It's always those two. And I have a lot stored away now thanks to that. I had to purge my stash a little bit and let go of yarns that I had not purchased but had just been gifted to me that I never really would have chosen. It's hard, but it comes from a very kind place. But it just seems to keep happening. So now I've come to the point where I go, oh no, it's okay. I don't need your stuff. I've got so much of my own. So after that initial lesson, I knit a red heart yarn scarf in bright red yarn, and it had knits and purls and an X&O design in the knit and purls. Even then, I was not happy to just do plain knitting or garter stitch. I wanted to do something with texture, something with pattern. And after that first scarf, which was too short, and so has gone to the donation pile for some small child out there, hopefully enjoyed it, I started knitting a pair of gloves with fingers, which took me forever and apparently was very adventurous for a beginner. And I guess I've always been an adventurous beginner in things, so that kind of fits. I want to do a lot of new skills. I try with every project to learn a new skill, a new technique, a new style of knitting. I started learning English, and then I learned Continental and Portuguese, and I'm always on the hunt for a new way to knit. It's exciting for me. I also learned how to do color work with two hands, which I find to be easiest. I am currently doing a project with slip stitch color work, which originally I had thought would be more complicated than two-handed color work, just because I had gotten used to that. But I'm experimental, I'm trying something new, and so I found that it's really enjoyable. I began knitting other people's patterns, like you do, except I just never could follow the pattern exactly. I always had to add my own twist, my own color changes, my own little bit of design to it. And I think that part of that was knowing that I'm making this item for myself. If I wanted to buy exactly what someone else made, I would go to a store and buy it. But if I'm making it myself, I want to add a little detail. I want to add some pop of color. I want to add some baubles. I want to add some other kind of texture. So that's really been how I knit all along. And so slowly moving along from changing other people's designs, I started working more and more on my own design. And that's what I'm going to be introducing today. How I became a knitwear designer, if I can call myself that. I haven't published a pattern yet. That's coming soon. But I still feel confident in saying that I am a knitwear designer because I am designing knitwear. So we're going to start with some of the projects I did in the past, starting with other people's patterns and then adding my own design flares to it. And then we'll talk a little bit about my own completely independent design that I'm working on. So to start, we have a very well-loved teardrop hat. You can see the textured pattern on there. I went to one of those free pattern encyclopedias and looked up different stitches, and I found this teardrop design and absolutely fell in love with it. So I started with somebody else's hat pattern to get the brim size right, and then I did the teardrop all around the body of the hat. And then when it came time for the decreases, I did my own decrease design, which created this really cool flower effect, which was completely by accident. I had no idea what I was doing with decreases, except I knew that the hat was supposed to get smaller until you closed it. And so I just went along with my own idea about where those decreases should be and how often they should be, and it created this shape, and I was very pleased with it, and I wouldn't know how to replicate it if you asked me. Next, I have a design which was construction-wise completely lifted from Emily Straw's Hamel Knit pattern. The only thing I changed on this one was the color work. So first we have the inner brim, which was done with a provisional cast on and says autumn. So it was knit into the main body of the hat to create this really sporty folded over edge. I really love this design element that Emily added. And then I went around and put #fall, pumpkin spice, apple picking, and other fall words, falling leaves, and then the pumpkin spice is nutmeg, cloves, and cinnamon. So this is my #fall hat, and Emily's design had this really cool star on the top, which I'm super impressed with her design on that. I have no idea how she came up with it. And I thought it looked an awful lot like the top of a pumpkin. So I thought, well, I've already done this hat in orange. I'd love for this to be a pumpkin hat. And so I added a little stem and some vines and made it into a little pumpkin hat. And now it's my very special fall hat that I wear every fall. So that one was fun. Another hat I used the same structure as the Hamel Knit design is my Be Kind hat. And I call it that because the inside of the brim says, surprise, surprise, be kind. I like to have this as a little reminder pressed against my forehead how I should treat other people. And for this one, I mixed together several different designs from other people's patterns that were for free that I found through Pinterest and other like friendship bracelet making websites, these free bee art. I combined some wings with somebody else's body, and then you'll see this pattern here I incorporated from another design that I did, which is the honeycomb pattern, and I put that all together and created the bee hat. All right. Finally, I have my Boldly Go hat, which is much more my own design. I did a ribbed brim, I designed how tall the body should be, and I redesigned the decreases so that it would fit more like a skull cap flat to the head. All of the color work was completely my own design. I designed a little Enterprise silhouette and the different symbols for each of the departments in Starfleet in their matching colors. I love this one. I wear this hat all the time. And that was my first really my design that didn't use other people's design except for the basic structure of a beanie. Next, I'm moving on to sweaters. This is not in chronological order. I actually did the sweater before the hats. But I did a drop sweater. It was my first pullover. And this one originally had heart designs here, facing up and down. And I decided that I needed to have them be ships. So I did a little design of the Enterprise, and then I did the deltas that go around the neckline and the body and the sleeves. And I'm so proud of this sweater. It looks at a distance, you could miss it. It might just be any other style sweater, but when you get up close, you can see the design and you can see how nerdy I really am. So I love that. And yeah, it was my first pullover sweater, so I will link the pattern that I used below. Next, I have a Harry Potter themed sweater. It is Hufflepuff. For this one, I can't take credit for the badger. I found that on a friendship making bracelet website, and I will try to dig up the link to link below. I did work on the honeycomb design myself, and I put that all over the sweater. I really like how it makes it look like almost like armor. Again, this pattern was not my original design for the sweater structure. I took that. I believe it's also Drop's design. I will again link that below. And that gave me confidence after doing that work that I felt I could really do a sweater of my own. I decided to do my own sweater, and that sweater of course has to be cable knit because nothing can be easy for me. And that sweater is called Ophelias Lament. So I only have samples right now. I have not finished designing the whole sweater, but I have a sample panel for the main body, which is flowers that I have done all these cable designs myself. So we have on this side the pansy, the center is the daisy, and this side is the rosemary. And each of these designs, I looked up the flower, I sketched the flower, and then I spent hours and hours designing the cables for them and their matching foliage. The hardest one, I kid you not, was this daisy, and it's the one I'm super proud of. Not that the others aren't beautiful, but this is my baby because I looked at a million different daisy style stitches, and all of them were okay, but they weren't what I was looking for, and I didn't find anything that was a full flat circle. And so I worked really hard and went through a lot of patterns and went through a lot of experiments and finally developed this circle daisy for myself, which I feel is truly unique, so I'm really proud of that. Of course, it wouldn't be a Hamlet sweater if it didn't have the skull. Mr. Yorick himself will be featured in the center. Even though the sweater primarily focuses on Ophelia, I wanted to include this element because it really is one of the key symbols of the play. And also, Ophelia dies, so I thought it was appropriate to have a skull. And really, the skull was the beginning of the sweater design. Originally, it was called Poor Yorick, but as I did more and more of the design and decided that I wanted flowers as the main motif, and specifically the flowers that Ophelia passes out when she kind of loses it, I realized that it was really more her sweater. So I'm going to be doing a large willow tree on the back, which I have committed to. For a while I was going to weesh out and just make the back plain, but no, it's going to have a full willow tree pattern on the back, and then the arms will have other flowers, and then there'll be flowers around the neckline as well. So look forward to that coming out eventually. It's going to take a while. I've been working on it for 2 months, and I will probably be working on it for several months more, but I am very excited. Some other hats that I don't still have that I would like to share are 3 designs that I plan to release as patterns. So I'm looking for test knitters for all of these. So if you're interested in test knitting, please, please, please comment below, direct message me, or email me at woolwitcherydesigns@gmail.com. And I will be happy to get back to you and send you the rough pattern so that you can try to knit it, which is what test knitters do. Sorry. Anyway, moving on. The first hat is Canticum Unicornis, and this one was designed for my sister-in-law. It is inspired by Baroque period needlepoint designs, and I added my own modern flair to it, and I think that the yarn really brings it into the modern age, but it has kind of a lost unicorn magical feel to it, so that was the goal. Next is Totally Metal, which was inspired by a picture of St. George and the Dragon from the same Baroque period text that I used for the first one. and I added the wizard because I felt like it was appropriate with the dragon and the knight to have a wizard as well, and it felt like a heavy metal album cover, so that's where that name came from. That was for my brother. And the last one is Fairy in the Garden, Le Petite Fée, and that one was for my niece. And this one, the flowers are inspired from the Baroque designs, but the fairy is completely my own design. And that's it. Those are the 3 upcoming patterns that I will be selling. Let me dig it out again. I will be giving away, with Emily Stra's permission, I'm going to be giving away the pattern for the bee hat. So I think it's important that everybody have this message in their mind, be kind, but also because it's a combination of other people's artwork, I'm not going to make any money off of it, but I will be giving that design away, so you can look forward to that on my Ravelry page, which I will link in the show notes. That's it. That's all I have for today. In the future, I will be showing progress on my pattern designs and also have sections where I just show you what I'm knitting currently and have a general chat about that. But thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a magical day.